Welcome back to Wrong Sports, and this next coach's story that I'm going to cover is a coach that not many people will know about, but in the 1980s, he was one of the hottest young coaches in the country. His rise in the college football coaching world was steady, and by 40, he had won 65% of his games. He won a Division III national championship, and he was getting calls from Division I schools. But the end of his career and the tragedy that ended it shook up the team and the school that he left. This is the story of the triumphs and the tragedy of Rick Carter. But before I get into this story, make sure as always you are subscribed to the channel below and make sure you ring that bell so you can get updates on brand new videos that I will be dropping in the future. You can also check out my Patreon right now, patreon.com/wrongsports. I have exclusive content there. Also, please make sure you share this channel, like this channel, give this channel a super like. You can give this video a super like. It basically helps out my channel, and you can help out my channel monetarily that way as well. So please do that if you can. So let's get into the beginnings of Rick Carter. He was born in 1943 in Dayton, Ohio, but grew up not far from there, in Kittering, Ohio. He was a quarterback, and even though he was undersized, he succeeded enough to be a three-sport letterman. He was a captain of the baseball team and football teams, and the college's top scholar athlete during his time at Earlham College in Richmond, Indiana. While he played for the school, he led the team to a 22-2 record, including an undefeated season. In addition to his great play on the field, his leadership off the field was so good that he would be an assistant coach for the team in 1965, and then the very next year, he was named Earlham's head coach at the age of 23. His first season was a losing one, which would be rare for him, but then he had 5 consecutive winning seasons, which is something no coach has been able to do at Earlham College. And if you want to hear more about Earlham College and just how bad they are, you can check out my worst college football teams in Division II and Division III. I'll put a link above as well in the description below. He would then move on to there to take his second head coaching job at Hanover College in 1972, which was another small college in Indiana. He would get even better there as he went to the NAIA playoffs twice and led his teams to a 36-11 record in 5 seasons, and he even won the conference title 4 times. Now at only 34 and with over a decade of head coaching experience, he would go back to his birthplace of Dayton, Ohio, to coach the University of Dayton starting in 1977. At Dayton, he had a 39-7-2 record with 2 Division III playoff appearances, but his final season of 1980 was his finest. That year, the team went 11-0, including having 6 shutouts, with one of the biggest ones being in the national title game, where they destroyed Ithaca College 63-0 to be named the national champion. In addition, Rick Carter would win the D3 Coach of the Year, along with the national title, and after that season, at only 37 now, many schools would be after him, but none more determined than Holy Cross. Holy Cross were Division I, but they were Division I AA, so a small school but on a larger scale than his previous jobs. And Holy Cross were so committed to hiring Carter because they wanted to be recognized and be on the level of their rival Boston College, who had far surpassed them by this point. And the school went so far to hire Carter that they called in their biggest weapon, which was a super lawyer, Edward Bennett Williams, who was the owner of the Orioles, the Washington Redskins, and the chairman of the Holy Cross Board of Trustees. After hearing from him, Carter would take the job and move to Massachusetts to start their turnaround at Holy Cross. I say turnaround because Holy Cross only had 3 winning seasons in the last 2 decades, but in Carter's first season, they went 6-5, including only losing to their rival BC by 4 points, which was one of the slimmest margins they had in a while. The next season, 1982, was even better, as they went 8-3 to be named one of the best teams in all of Division I AA. That would just build for his best season of 1983, as the team would start 9-0-1 and were ranked number 1 in the Division I AA polls, but they would lose again to BC in their finale to be 9-1-1. But because they were still ranked number 1, they were invited to the D1 AA National Title Tournament, and this would be the first time in school history that they were invited. But they would unfortunately lose in their first game to have a record of 9-2. 2-1. Rick Carter was named Division I AA Coach of the Year, and Holy Cross captured the Lambert Cup, which was given to the best 1AA team on the East that year. After that 1983 season, Carter was on the national map, and NC State came calling. Apparently, the job was Carter's if he wanted it, and it would have been a meteoric rise from a small Earlham college coach to Holy Cross to now a major college job in the ACC. But he was stopped as the president of Holy Cross, Reverend John E. Brooks, and the guy that recruited him to the school, Williams, would not let Carter out of his 5-year original contract. This decision was just the start of the tragedies that would befall Carter over the next few years. It was also the beginning of a rift between Carter and the school. Due to all this happening, his next contract, which wouldn't start until 1986, would include an escape clause, but there was a much bigger challenge looming for Carter. That was due to the impending creation of the Colonial League, which would later be renamed the Patriot League. It was led by Holy Cross's own president, Father Brooks, and it focused more on educational institutions and would de-emphasize football at those schools. And these schools would basically be Division III schools playing at Division I AA. Think of it more like the Pioneer League. So not only would Carter not be able to coach at a university at the top level, but now the school he was basically trapped in was taking a step back from its commitment to football, which was the whole reason why he went there. What made matters worse was that the Colonial League introduction was announced just minutes before Holy Cross shut out Delaware on November 12, 1983, which was the win that put Holy Cross at number 1 in the Division I AA polls. And that was their last win of that season, because remember, they lost to Boston College, and then they lost in the playoffs. So maybe it jinxed them a little bit. So now with no way of getting out of Holy Cross, the de-emphasizing of the football at the school, he was also told that his team was going to have no scholarship athletes as they entered the Colonial League, which started in 1986. The 1984 season, though, was starting as they would have another good one, as Carter was able to recruit D1 AA legend Gordy Lochbaum, who would only play DB this season, but he would start to break out as one of the best all-around players starting in 1986. Along with that, the team would start 7-0 until a 1-3 finish on the season that took away their invite to the national title tournament. And it seemed like Carter was always looking towards next season with positivity and the belief that Holy Cross would be a playoff or national title team again. But the summer of 1985 was when his mindset and perhaps his personality changed. That was because Carter's biggest fan, his father Cloyd, was diagnosed with cancer, and he would die just a week later. But it only got worse when he learned that his mother, Henrietta, had terminal cancer as well. His father was a mainstay at all of Holy Cross's games and even practices, so his death was hard for Rick and for the team to take, but obviously mostly Rick. But even though there was so much hurt, Rick didn't let anyone know he was hurting, and even was falling into depression. It wasn't the easiest thing for a college football coach to talk about depression in 1985, and it was even harder to find someone that would be able to help him. Some of his players, like Lochbaum, and assistant coaches, like the future Holy Cross coach Mark Duffner, noticed the change in Rick, but he didn't let his feelings known, and nothing would be done. When the season started, there were a rash of injuries, and with less recruiting of new scholarship players, since remember they would officially be in the Colonial League starting next season, the team would falter to a 4-6-1 record, which was his first losing record in almost 2 decades. Things, though, would unfortunately get worse, as after the season, more tragedy would hit Carter, as he retreated to Ohio to visit his ailing mother, when he found out his sister-in-law died of cancer now. So now, within a 2-year span, he had 3 family members that were diagnosed with cancer, and 2 died pretty quickly. After that, Rick's wife would notice the change in Rick, as he was making weekly trips to Ohio to visit his mother, while also getting the team ready for 1986. The changes were that he stopped eating, he wasn't sleeping regular hours, and he just stopped thinking clearly. Once his wife saw that he wasn't himself anymore, and just more despondent, she pushed him to admit himself for treatment. Eventually he relented, as on January 24, 1986, he admitted himself to Kittering Memorial for treatment of depression, and he stayed until Monday, appearing to return to his wife more like himself, and she even said he laughed for the first time in months. And it seemed like the admission and the medication he took was for the good, as Rick Carter returned to Holy Cross, but he promised his doctors in Ohio that he would seek treatment in Massachusetts soon. He would return back to Holy Cross on Friday, January 31st, to get ready for a banquet with his team on Sunday. He would also meet with several players on Saturday on campus to go over things they wanted to get better at for this season. But that would be the last time anyone on the team, his coaches, and staff at Holy Cross would see him alive again. As at some point on early Sunday morning, Rick Carter, age 42, would take his own life. The team banquet was canceled with no reason given to the team. Shock and sadness hit the team quickly, as many thought the reason for the cancellation of the banquet was because Rick's mother had passed away. So when they were told what happened, it only brought sadness and sorrow. Mark Duffner, who was brought to Holy Cross by Carter, took over for the next 6 seasons and went 65-1, and he even got to coach Lochbaum during his fantastic and Heisman Trophy finalist seasons of 1986 and 1987, where he actually finished in 3rd. Questions were asked and still asked to this day about Carter and his final days, but there aren't too many answers. A lot of what I have found and repeated in this video were from Duffner, Lochbaum, and his wife, who spoke with ESPN and the Boston Globe a few months after it happened. And I'm not going to guess as to what actually set him over the edge. All I will say is that Rick Carter was a highly successful coach, as he had a record of 137, 58, and 7. Along with that, he had a keen eye in hiring staff, as through the 5 seasons he was at Holy Cross, he hired 3 future head coaches and NFL coaches, as he hired Mark Duffner, who coached not only at Holy Cross but at Maryland. He also would hire Kevin Coyle, who was a DC for several NFL teams, and finally Carter also hired Mike Sherman in 1985, who was a little-known offensive line coach and would go on to coach Texas A&M and the Green Bay Packers. Rick Carter was survived by his wife of 15 years and his 2 sons, and his coaching career doesn't get enough praise, and neither does his personality, which, according to players, was always uplifting and was always someone that the players and coaches could always talk to. He was also kind and never showed ill will towards Holy Cross after they didn't let him leave in 1983, as he always stated that he had the best job in Division I AA, and really in Division I. But really what I wanted to do with this story was to help more college football fans, college sports fans, get to know a great coach like Rick Carter, who we lost way too soon. And also I hope this video might help you out or might help out someone you know try to get over depression. It's a really tough thing. It's awful. I'll put some links below for help on that. I'm also going to put some links in the description below where you can see the original story where I got all of the quotes and the stories from everyone in Rick Carter's life from ESPN and Boston Globe. I'll put that in the description below. And thank you so much for checking out this video. Please subscribe to the channel below if you aren't already. Ring the bell so you get updates. And please check out my Patreon, patreon.com/wrongsports.